through the doors. Kate is back from the Moonshine Saloon in Chelsea, and I think she's sober enough to take some questions.
Just about.
I'm going to revisit what's been happening tonight, because it's been breaking news. And my sense is still that the EU did blink a bit, not in a way that is going to be a huge material difference. But we had Mr. Tusk there say you can have an extension, but only if you get the deal through, and then you have an extension to cross the T's and dot the I's. But tonight, after 4 hours, so there was clearly disagreement with the EU 27. They're not making that a condition anymore. And I don't know what you picked up, but what I picked up was they suddenly realised the vote next week on her deal could be so late, and it goes down, that within 24 hours there's a kind of momentum that we just leave without a deal, and they wanted to stop that.
I think that's a real fear, and I think the one thing that Theresa May did manage to get across today in her meetings with EU leaders, if nothing else, was that she is really serious about leaving without a deal, and that all along has been their concern. But I think the European Union never really thought she would push it that far. They kind of thought it was a negotiating tactic, something that worked quite well at home too. But today, what seems to be coming out of Brussels is that actually for the first time they really saw the seriousness in her eyes, and they believed it to be a real possibility. And perhaps that's why, with all those differences of opinion between the 27, that's the position they have ended up in. But I think she's also softened her tone. If you listen to what the Prime Minister was saying, particularly compared to last night, when she addressed the nation in that speech, which really split opinion here in Westminster, she was saying, well, you know, I was frustrated, I know MPs are frustrated, but they do a really good job. And she was also saying, well, if you don't vote for my deal, we'll have to come up with an alternative plan. Now, she acknowledged that there would have to be EU elections, but for lots of MPs, that's not necessarily the end of the world.
It would mean a long extension, but she seems to have set her position against everything can change. In a sense, the EU has now joined Britain in kicking the can down the road a bit. Not far down the road, it's only 2 weeks, but on the assumption that she cannot get her deal through, and I see nothing to suggest that this deal is going to get through on a third vote now, she's then got to go back on the 12th, if not before. And what does she say?
Yeah, indeed, but I think she's made the position worse for herself. When Tusk made that statement yesterday, I think there were a lot of Labour MPs, and she's going to have to rely on Labour MPs to get this deal through, who thought, Christ, this is kind of no-deal territory we'll be going into here. Then she made that unwise statement last night, which was actually contemptible, I think, in the sense that MPs are under a lot of pressure, no matter which party they're in, and here she is, not just saying the buck doesn't stop here, which is a famous American president, the buck stops miles away from me, but also slagging off the people that she needs to go on side. Now, Lisa Nandy today was saying...
Who's the Labour MP?
Labour MP, very sensible future leader, I hope. She had people on board to vote for the deal, and now they're saying, after her speech last night, she's lost that.
What comes out of Brussels tonight, though, is that the buck, in this matter, the buck stops in Brussels. Brussels now calls the shots.
Oh, absolutely, completely.
Of course they do.
But in order to try and work out what's going to happen, I think the only thing we could do is exclude what's not going to happen. So what's not going to happen, she's not going to get the deal through. We're not going to leave with no deal, because 90% of MPs are against it. And I don't think we're going to vote to get rid of Article 50, because I don't think MPs...
That's to revoke Article 50, to end the Brexit process.
So if we're not going to do all three of those things, then something else is going to happen. I think Parliament will try to take over the process. I think Parliament may well succeed in taking over the process. And what emerges from that, I think, will be unacceptable to Mrs May. I think Mrs May will resign before April the 12th. And before April the 12th, an interim leader of the Conservative Party, I suppose it would be David Lidington, he's Deputy Prime Minister, will say that we want to explore with the European Union an alternative, maybe something that's emerged by then from the House of Commons, like a Norway option, and therefore we need a long extension. The result of all of that will be a sort of outbreak of peace between us and the European Union, and absolute mayhem in the Conservative Party.
Yes, it'll rip them apart.
But surely Berkow's ruling means for Labour to put down another motion of no confidence, he would have to rule it out of order, because it'd be the same motion.
Well,
and for a second referendum.
And it would stop some of the amendments that are coming up next week too. is I understand that there's an amendment being recycled, which is an attempt to take away the agenda from the government and place it in the Commons and come up with something that can be presented to the EU by April the 12th. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's in essence, what has happened tonight is that actually Parliament has been given an incentive to try to do that because of that 12th of April deadline. So there is a suggestion that that amendment could be brought back. It would likely get quite a lot of support, and it would mean Parliament putting forward its alternative plans and then those being voted on. The problem is those are not legally binding, so it still requires a government or somebody to be able to coalesce around and force this to be the new deal on the table. I do think, though, if we end up in a situation where the Prime Minister's deal is not voted through next week and we're starting to talk about the 12th of April and European elections, I mean, that's the point at which Theresa May's position becomes incredibly untenable. I mean, she's already, the Chief Whip is talking to MPs in Westminster today and saying that he thought her speech last night was really the wrong tone, completely awful. Even David Liddington telling Chuka Umunna in a meeting this afternoon that it was the wrong thing to have done. I mean, when you've lost your de facto deputy and your chief whip, and they are effectively briefing against you and forcing your hand, she had to make that speech and effectively make an apology. That's not a very good place to be. And if that carries on, and the sense of anger and frustration in the Conservative Party towards the Prime Minister at the moment is worse than I've ever seen it, well, then her position looks pretty shaky.
Is there now no chance that we leave on no deal on March the 29th? Is there no chance that what the European Union feared, that the vote is late, and then we just kind of fall out for want of anything else to happen? Can that be stopped?
I think it can now that they've said they'll have that extension. I mean, they said that extension, you're quite right, Andrew, because of that. And in a sense overruled what Tusk had said, because they knew about the Burkow problem as well. So even if there were a load of MPs waiting to vote for this deal, she's got this problem to get round, which is not insurmountable. So I think 29th has gone, but I don't think crashing out without a deal has gone. That is a very real prospect.
Because
for all your talk about the 27 being divided, they're not giving her a long extension. They've not said you can have it up till June. If she's run out of ideas and it's still her, and Parliament hasn't managed to get together an alternative that works, we could crash out without a deal.
Well, they could give the British a long extension if the no deal is ruled out, the May deal is ruled out, and we agree to take part in the European elections, and we agree to start new talks. In my view, probably not before November, because Europe's got so much else on its plate. But that would be a game changer in British politics, would it not?
Well, it's absolutely impossible for Mrs May to do that. So it would have to be a new leader of the Conservative Party.
But any new leader would rip the Tories apart.
Well, I know, but where else are they going to go? I mean, I would like to see, quite honestly, either no deal or revocation, because either one of them is a solution. I don't want this to go on, but I think Mrs May is right about Parliament to this extent, that Parliament doesn't have the guts either for no deal or for revocation. They don't have the guts for revocation because none of them wants to put their name to denying what the British people have already decided.
2 million people have signed the
vote. Forget it. 17.4 million voted to leave.
Yeah, but it's not been going for a little while. 2 million is a lot of people.
I'm not impressed by that.
You're not?
No.
What about 4 million?
No, I wouldn't be impressed by that. And if you start a petition the other way around, you'll get the same number.
But no one has, which is interesting.
Oh, Andrew, I'm surprised that you even mentioning that. I mean, that's just playing dead.
I'm sorry to surprise you, but I like to surprise you.
Back to the main issue. It's not going to be no deal, and it's not going to be revocation. So it's got to be something in between. I agree it destroys the Conservative Party, but I believe that what's going to happen is a new start under a new leader, and only in those circumstances, I think, will the EU give us an extension, because then they'll see there's a different game in town, and that will all take a long time.
If Parliament moves to what they call these indicative votes, in which it's a number of options, Norway plus or a second referendum or whatever it is, but will any of them command a majority?
Well, that's the question. At the moment, the only thing that commands a majority in Parliament is that they don't want to leave without a deal.
Is what they don't
Is
want.
what they don't want. So that's been the problem all the way along. There have been these so-called indicative votes, because we know about the second referendum vote. Jeremy Corbyn's softer Brexit plan has also been voted down, like the Prime Minister's.
Yes.
But I think it's worth saying, although it feels unlikely right now, she could still get that deal through. If the DUP, those talks have been ongoing, they're not over yet. It's possible the DUP could get on board. You're shaking your head, but if enough Labour MPs perhaps came round to it at the end of the day, it could
I think they need the DUP to tilt, then they need the ERG to tilt, then they need Labour to tilt, and all the dominoes have to fall in that row. If the DUP doesn't fall, the others
then nothing else
don't.
will.
But we shall see with another week of this.
You never know.
Enjoying Sky News?
Very much, thank
Great.
you.
Well, thank you for being with us
Thank you
today.
very much.
Now,